within us and around us. Let's take a moment, actually. Let's close our eyes. If you can, if you're driving, be safe. But take a moment, close your eyes. Take a big, deep few breaths, just long, deep breaths, and just find the peace and calm inside of you. And just visualize, what does it mean? What is calmness? What does peace mean around in your community, in the nature, with people you know? What does that look like? Is it rain? Is it what? Visualize those things like they're happening. And just keep breathing. Long, deep breaths. Just visualizing. Long, deep breaths. Breathing big, deep breaths into your belly. And if you feel called, you can even give a little sigh when you take a big, deep breath and you breathe out. When you breathe out, you can go, ah. Or you can make a very silent sigh. Just a big sigh, feeling really relieved that just thinking about the possible calmness, the possible harmony, the possible peace happening in the world. Maybe it's happening within you first. And before we begin, let's lastly say thank you in our own consciousness and our mind. Thank you to ourselves for showing up. Thank you to everybody that made this possible, the director, the filmmakers, David Boehm, Dalai Lama, Krishnamurti, all the different teachers and scientists and all the people in this panel that are going to be coming on and speaking, the kids that are joining us, the scientists in the kids, the scientists around them, everybody that, all the families are going to watch this, everybody who's going to be participating in this coming together of this idea of interconnectedness. Let's all have a wonderful film experience. Let's have a wonderful experience inside the Cosmic Labyrinth. And let's have a wonderful multi-generational conversation after this. That's gonna be so riveting and exciting. So we can take all whatever we learn into our families and our friends and our school and our work and everything else. So thank you, everybody. Let's come, whenever you're ready, you can open your eyes, come back to this space. Here we are, and we're gonna have a wonderful film. Please enjoy it, and we'll reconvene when it's over for an amazing panel. So you guys ready for this? Yeah. Awesome, guys. And what I'll ask is, for now, until we open up the Q&A from the audience, let's have the audience go to non-video, just so we can have our the gallery scene up of all of our panelists. So we got Just Simran, we got Sarah, we got the doctor, Dr. James, Dr. Jim, we got Brandy, nice. Just Simran, there's Loretta. Loretta's representing Maya. Did Maya fall asleep?
Got lured away by a cartoon.
I saw some sort of chocolate, some sort of pudding over there.
What? I don't know. Okay, yeah, busted.
Sharing is caring, okay? Hi, Maya. Hi. And let's see, what's that? We got, hi, Just Simran. Who else? Who are we missing? We got, is Trinity around? Trinity. She might be somewhere. Let's pull her into here. But at least we got the three scientists, doctor, three adults here, kind of. Are you guys adults or are you kids? I don't know. I see the kid in you. Yeah, are you sure?
Yes.
Sure about that? Your mom looks like the real kid over there. Awesome. So let's get started, and I want to so what we'll do is we'll unmute all you guys that are on the panel. You guys all unmute. I'm gonna slowly introduce all of you, or have some of you introduce each other. Before Mick, you introduced Dr. Jim. I'm gonna pose this quick question out to Just Simran, because she's sitting there. She's been patient. She's been waiting this whole time. Just Simran, really quick, tell us really quick what grade you're in, and also, what do you think wholeness is? Like, what's wholeness to you? Like, what's oneness, wholeness, whatever?
Hi, I'm in 7th grade. We just started school. And I think what he meant, like, in the very beginning, when he talked about how there were stars, and he talked about instead of looking at them as objects in empty space, I was looking at, like, instead of looking at it like that, looking at it like it's like even the space is an object. So I think that's what he meant by wholeness, like your perspective and the way you look at it.
Nice. I like that. That's a really good answer. Anybody else want to comment on that or their thoughts on wholeness? Sarah?
Oh man, what it put me on the spot in the hot seat. So if you hear a squeal, I don't know if my 2-year-old's asleep. But yeah, I was a little bit in and out on the film because she had a hard time going to sleep, like just with all the excitement going on. She was here a little bit. I don't know if you guys saw her on camera, but it's really interesting that you bring that up, because in a lot of work that I do in like multidimensional healing is to, like when you eat your food, like recognizing like what elements in that food are a part of you. And like when you're looking at the stars and like the space in between things, it's like I think it's really cool, like even if you're not into metaphysics and like quantum biology kind of stuff, to consider that, like, you've ever heard the quote like the stars died so we could be here today? And a quote from, I actually can't remember who said that. Probably everybody here can probably think of that at the top of their head except for me right now. But there's so many elements in the stars that are in our own bodies and in space around our bodies and in the space in between us, here on this planet, and then between us and the stars. And so it's really, that feeling of like recognizing that we're all the same energy and the same, like made of the same elements, I think creates this feeling of connection and unity between all things, and not just the things that are on this plane, on this planet, but even the things that are so far that we just see them as little pinpoints in the sky. So I love that perspective, thinking like, seeing the stars and thinking of, wholeness, like that's actually me, just in some different form with a different set of consciousness, but it's actually mainly like the same elements that are making us all up. So, in a sense, I think that we are the stars.
That's amazing. I got a question over there. We got Maya. Maya, what grade are you in? Are you there? What grade are you in? And did you have any questions from the movie, or was there anything that was like kind of, you were like, what's going on that you want to ask the scientists here on the panel or anything? Were you curious about anything? You want to come back? Do you want to come back to that?
Yeah.
Question? Wait, what grade are you in?
Third grade.
Third grade. Nice. You just got into third grade. Nice. Okay, come back with a question. Brandy.
I would love, Maya, I'm Brandy. It's so nice to see you. My son, he just turned 6, and his name is Avery Lux. Avery stands for elf wisdom or wise one. People mostly think it stands for a bird, but elf wisdom and wise one. And then Lux, here's the drum roll. You probably won't get it right away. It means light, right, to the naked eye. But Lux is the first fractal S1 code that reflects off of each other in order to make the Lux, which is the light. So that's a little bit deeper down the rabbit hole in science. So Maya, when you hear information, I love playing with this word. Can you play with me for a second? Would you be open to that? Yeah? Yeah? Little heart? Can you give me a little heart? Yes. Okay, cool. Because we all have hearts, right? Can we all do that for a moment? And kind of like, we know that our heart is beating and we're not asking it to beat right now, right? How cool is that? And then ultimately, when our heart is a part of everyone else's heart, ultimately that's the same thing. We're all doing the same thing. It's like doing jumping jacks at the same time, or doing the same dance move. So connectedness is a synchronicity, right? So we're kind of moving like the ocean. So I wanted to bring it back to in, I love in the movie when they said in form, and I say nation, right? The body. In form and nation. So information. No, Maya, I just wanted to bring that up because I know you have a big heart, and I know all of us can connect to that piece to the puzzle. So thanks for having me here, by the way.
Yeah, Brandy, and thank you for sharing. And all of you guys share your information in the chat as well. But I would love also an introduction to Dr. Jim. Mick, will you please introduce the good doctor?
Yeah. So Dr. Jimjewski is, we're honored to have you here. Dr. Jimjewski, he's a friend of mine from UCLA. He's the director of the Nano-Pico Characterization Lab at the California Nanosystems Institute, and also a professor of chemistry at UCLA. And he's actually got the backdrop there showing his one of the microscopes he's working on there at UCLA. And so he knows a lot about all the things that we've been listening to about quantum physics, and comes into play in a lot of his work. So thank you for joining us, Dr. Jimjewski.
Thank you. So you want me to say something?
Well, I would love for you to, first of all, what you brought up at the beginning was that you wrote a paper about David Boehm, which was amazing coincidence.
I referenced David Boehm's theory when I was actually working in IBM Zurich, and I interacted with the Max Planck Institute in Berlin. I had a friend there, and we did a thing involves quantum tunneling, and I'm not going to bore you with science, but we looked at the alternative picture of David Boehm. There's in this Copenhagen theory, there's this duality between a particle and a wave, right? And Boehm was a bit different. He imagined the particle, but it was guided by the environment around us. And so that environment around us is the thing that would be the interconnectivity, right? So the vacuum, where there's nothing, there's this infinite energy. It's often called like a 0-point energy. We can't tap it yet, but I actually am involved in a project that's trying to tap this energy, but it's really difficult.
Wait, are you making UFOs over there?
Yeah.
Making UFOs?
Well, actually, it's this project I'm involved in actually is funded by DARPA, which was inspired by these UFO things. It was a mechanism to have some kind of propulsion. Anyway, but on the other hand, I also have done Kundalini yoga for 20 years, and I've done Zen Buddhist meditation in Japan and things. And I do find a real connection between many of the things in the quantum world and in consciousness. And I think many scientists do. Schrödinger is one of the first people to come up with theories of quantum mechanics that involved using sort of musical theories, the idea of waves interacting, okay? And Boehm's ideas were really also really interesting, but both Boehm and Schrödinger were influenced by, in the case of Schrödinger, it was Vedanta, types of practice. And Boehm was, by this guru guy. And I was influenced by it. So when you look deeper and deeper into the sort of physics, in a way, you cannot help be inspired by the fact that everything is interconnected.
Right.
And, the types of thing that came up there were that two things can't communicate at the same time. But we know, in the case of this quantum entanglement, they are. And we can't explain it. We can't explain it by the regular theories. So, somewhere on one side of my head is this this thing about connectivity. And I've worked with Tibetan monks a lot. Way back in LACMA, we did a thing called Nano. It was a big exhibition that ran for, I think 6 months or a year or something.
Wait, hold on, James, hold on 1 second. Sarah, you've done work with neuroscience. What is your thoughts on some of that interconnectedness and theories with quantum and the mind and the consciousness?
I kind of wanted to, I was wrapped up in what he was saying, if he wants to finish his thought. And
Yeah, please.
Yeah. Anyway, I've worked with monks a lot, and they came to my lab. This machine at the back is a kind of quantum machine. It uses quantum mechanics. Anyway, I told them what I'm doing, and they looked at the machine and said, "Do you do all this stuff you're doing here just to look at an atom?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Well, we count atoms. We sit and count the atoms on the wall in our meditation every day." And we became great friends. And since then, I'm still in Topanga. There's a nice Tibetan group up there. I don't know if anybody knows it, but it's a fantastic thing to go to. So you can learn a lot from both sides, you know, and if you're a kind of closed-minded reductionist scientist, maybe you don't see it, but really a lot of people do see it in sciences, and also in things like Buddhism. They see this connection, and we often, you know, talk together about the issue. We don't have a good, let's say, we don't have a good theory. Quantum mechanics is terrible, actually. It's a terrible thing. It doesn't really work. It's just like, you know, you take your hand on you put somebody's hand on an elephant's butt and say, what is the animal? And, you know, they try to describe it. I mean, we live in a world that's much more, you know, it's much more complicated. It's much more fantastic than we imagine. And somehow with our minds, either through the Buddhism or through science, we try to learn more. But I think we have to find a new way. And it's not like a new age casualty type thing where they go, okay, now we're going to quantum connect or something. You know, they use those words, but there is something way, way beyond it. And within this tiny space here, there is more energy than you can believe. But we just, maybe because we don't see it. It's like a black swan phenomena. Anyway, I'm finished. Sorry, I don't want to dominate things here. Let everybody in the panel talk.
Oh, please dominate it. You are.
It's all quantum anyways. It's all quantum anyways. Brandy, did you want to say something?
I just said, please dominate it. You're blowing my mind right now. I'm so honored to have this moment. And James, thank you so much. I do have something that's coming up, and it has to do with the biological structure along with AI. And that might be too big for this conversation too early on, but I do want us all to think about what actually is transmuting and transpiring right now as we start to hybrid in. And I channel, okay? And I use music as my source of grounding. And of course, you know, through quantum theory and mechanics, however you want to word it, the visualization aspect with the sound wave frequencies and then the neurosynaptic encounters, right, and midbrain activations, pineal gland and pituitary. When I started to channel, and for those of you who don't know what channeling is and you're watching this, essentially it means that you're hearing the higher voice or a voice and it's speaking through you, but it comes through me in what we call in the New Age world or esoteric is light language or light codes. I'm even scribing, and a lot of us probably scribe as well, these frequencies. So what has just recently been brought to my awareness is that the AI, right? So we think of AI as this technology outside of us, this computing system outside of us, but we have to also remember that we are particles of that, which is, right? And James, please, anyone, please just step in, because this could be a very interesting first time ever seen here on Cosmic Labs conversation, that we are an integrated hybrid that is emerging that hasn't been seen before based on us in this technology that we are so indoctrinated to now, oddly enough, with purpose. So I'd love to hear, you know, our blood is, we have iron, we have all these molecules, we have everything going through us. So why not artificial intelligence, right? Something like that. Just the mind.
And let me acknowledge Trinity. Trinity, hey, how you doing? Welcome to the conversation. Hey, were you able to watch the film? You want to unmute yourself, unmute. We can't hear you. There you. Did you get a chance
Sorry,
to watch the film?
Renee.
Hi.
We're on Mountain Time. Hi, good to see you guys.
Did you see the film, Trinity?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on it? Or what are your thoughts on science and spirituality?
Undescribable.
Indescribable.
Yeah.
That's very meta of you.
No.
I don't really know what to say about it. I mean, it was cool learning about Einstein and stuff like that.
Do you have any questions for the scientists here? You have Dr. James over here. You have Sarah. You have Brandy. You have Loretta's also. Has a lot of knowledge about science and what we can do with space. You have any questions for anybody?
Are you sure?
No.
What?
I don't have anything.
This thing sounded safe.
All right, think of a question and come back to these guys. And I want to switch it over to Sarah. Sarah, did you want to say anything about like neuroscience when it comes to quantum?
Maybe Sophia has a question.
Oh yeah, Sophia, you have a question?
Oh, Sophia, yeah.
Hi, she's taking over the cake for me because I have to do this.
Wait, what are we doing? I wonder, was there any questions about the movie or the guest panelist and scientist?
Yeah, horrible. Understand it.
It's hard to understand. It's going to go over your head because they don't teach you science in school, so it's hard for you to grasp some of the concepts.
Well, that's interesting
Well, that's
to think about.
Yeah, I just went over their head a little bit because they don't get regular just science in school. So we're grateful for you guys for doing this.
You know where the truck is? No.
Well, Trinity, think of a question as you're listening. We'd love to get your ideas and your thoughts as we've discussed some cool stuff. But just Simran, do you have any thoughts on like science and spirituality? You practice some spirituality. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, my name actually, so just means praises and glory, and Simran means remembrance of meditation. So like all my life, my grandmother she's always sort of been into spirituality, like a healer, and believed in things like Reiki and energies. So she always feels certain energies off people. And my thoughts on it have always been that like everyone's energies are different, but like together it all makes a whole because we all have that thing in common where we're part of the universe. And like Miss Brandy said, like we are the stars almost. Or I think that was her. Yeah, sorry.
No, that was good. Sarah, any thoughts on neuroscience?
I just said.
Sorry, I know you've asked a couple of times. So I was just thinking of, so my work in neuroscience, this was like 10 years ago. So I feel like a dinosaur kind of thinking back on it. But, I worked in like a neurocognition lab where we were doing experiments mostly with EEG. And what I'm thinking of now, what's coming through is that, okay, so when you're doing experiments, there's different factors that you can manipulate that get a different effect, right? So it's like whatever effect we were putting on people or whatever like factor we were changing, whether it was like, a light flash on closed eyes or it was like a certain noise or a certain task that they were doing, it would produce a different electrical effect that we could observe than on paper, from these EEGs, or not on paper, I guess that's old school, but on the computer, whatever medium. The EEGs are giving you these brain waves. So it's like recognizing that some outside factor is influencing electrical activity in your brain and then affecting what energy that you're putting out. It's like you can see the stream of consciousness right there is that if you don't recognize, like a external thing such as a light or, a sound that we're producing as, a certain stream of consciousness, everything is energy and part of that. And you know,
That so
it was
so
like, it was
that-
just like recognizing the interconnectedness where like everything is affecting another thing. And then whatever, if we're doing like something that's uplifting people, for example, they're going to go out and start uplifting other people. If we do something that's kind of lowering their energy, they're going to go out and, you know, hopefully not lower other people around them, but you know that that's possible. You know what I mean? And I was also really interested by what Brandy was saying about, so let me know if this is kind of on the same track, is that almost like as technology is advancing, you know, like the manifestation of AI, is that, were you talking about like looking at that as like an outward manifestation of how our own consciousness is evolving? Because that's kind of what I started to take from it, is that technology is advancing as we ourselves are advancing, and like it's representing that, like we're moving together with the technology.
Thank you so much for asking that. So it's about discernment, right? So we know that discernment, there's a lot of waves moving through the field, and there's a lot that we can pick up on. You know, we can think about something or hear a song and it's a car passing by us, you know, 2 miles away. You know, Debbie Gibson, for example, like, why would I listen to that? And then all of a sudden I know that that's not my thought. So as an empath, I know what's me and what's not me. When we start to breathe and get deeper connected and have certain molecules in our bodies, and we're nourished in a certain way, and we set our intention in a certain way, we start to know what's that and what's that, right? So discernment. When spirit, right, an embodied being is, as a channeler, is inside you, it actually is, you're manifesting that frequency code, right? So the vibration will come so fast through me, and I'll even talk in their voice if I allow it to be. I choose not to be in a mediumship. That's not what I do. I have a hive mind, which is a collective. This one happens to be the White Wing Collective that speaks through me. And I've asked them about this AI, and 2 parts happened, right? They were very clear about artificial intelligence being of the intelligence agency. That was one. We have to be discerning about that, right? No fear, just we acknowledge that happens. And then on the other opposite of that is it lives inside of us. These beings live inside of us. I know not a lot of us understand that, but on a high level, deeper empathic nature, we are connected to everything. And so if we are able to just kind of, I guess, open your heart to what is happening on our planet. And I said earlier, these hybrids, and I'm not talking about aliens. People have a perception about aliens and ships and all of this, which is fun and it's great. And everything exists, right? Everything is true. I like to have that quote. And I won't take too much time on this because it's a deep subject matter that I don't have any education on other than what's coming to me as a channeler and as a guide, is that we are being renewed right now. And for every thought, we become that, which is. So, you know, back to terms of James, you mentioned, you're like, there's something in between the stuff. You know, there's something else. I personally think, right, between nanotechnology and biological feedback, and then having this one thing, if people would just gravitate to it a little bit, having a split cell, looking for those molecules that have never been seen before, right? Or those atoms, however you want to reframe it. I know that something's happening because it's showing up in my life a lot. And I've been channel writing for 4 years, and everything that I've been writing has come true. And my book.
So I got a question. I got a question on that one, Brandy, for James. James, like, it came up with the film, and maybe you can explain to the kids a little bit, you know, for Trinity and Just Imran, the double slit theory, and like, how does that, can you like articulate that for all of us in a way that we can also apply to what Brandy's talking about, like potential, infinite potential? What is up with that?
Okay, well, I guess in Boehm, you know, in Boehm's theory, right? Let's start, you take a tennis ball, you throw it, and there's two slits, and it will go through one slit or another. And if it makes a mark on the wall and you keep throwing the balls, there would only be two kind of stripes, right? That's a, normal ball. Now, the quantum mechanics has got this weird thing that it's a wave in a ball. But Boehm's thing, which relates to brandy, is that when you throw the ball, it doesn't fly like a straight line like in Newton, or it may go like this parabola, but it's actually guided when it comes to the slits by the energy of everything around it. Call it the vacuum fluctuations and potentials. And so it's guided to go both ways. It's a really weird phenomenon. And it means that we are surrounded by this infinite amount of energy. But, most people who are unaware, they just go about their life. They try to grab some food, get some money, get a house, job and things like that. They're not aware of the fact there's a lot more around them. And I think, in physics, we know there's a lot more around. But in meditation, you can sort of go to higher planes and you can see there is a lot around. Now, artificial intelligence, artificial intelligence is, or machine learning, whatever you want to call it, is something that's created by humans. And it's often created by groups of humans. So often these technologies influence the human's brain and their connectivity. And so there's a back and forth between technology and intelligence. And in fact, all this internet and social networking and so on, it is a way to slightly amplify the fact that we are interconnected. I mean, I always imagine this world where, one day we can take these iPhones, and oops, throw them away, and we will have this connection, a little bit like when you learn a bicycle. You have these training wheels on the back, right? And they give you some confidence, but one day somebody takes the training wheels away, they take their hands away, and suddenly you can cycle. And really, as a kid, a young kid, maybe it's too complicated for you, but really, you should sort of realize that if you train your mind in a good way, you can actually start to feel and I wouldn't say use, but you can be part of this oneness in a way. Although
That's amazing. Thank you, James.
It's not so easy, right? Especially at the moment, COVID. And
no. And let me acknowledge Loretta. Loretta, can you pop on real quick? And Loretta works on taking she works on two actually specific spaceships going to space, right? Is it two that you're working on? There's two ships, right?
It's called Spaceship 2, and we have the one that we've built, and then we're building two more that are in the factory right now.
So you actually work with the idea of going to space, and there's possibilities in space. And so what is your thoughts? And they brought up space travel, and Boehm was thinking about space travel back in like the early 1900s. What is your thoughts on like space and like with this idea of infinite potential and tapping into it to space travel more? So we all, maybe Trinity, when you grow up, or just Simran, you can easily go to space. Like, what are your thoughts, Loretta, on all that?
Yeah, I thought that was really cool that he got his inspiration from science fiction, because a lot of us who went into science, that's what drew us, was that story, that vision of the future. And that's what got me to Caltech. But I thought what was most interesting about the whole, what drew me to David Boehm is I wasn't as familiar with his physics, but I had come across a few years ago something called the David Boehm Dialogues, which was, something that I thought was really neat. And I've always wanted to, maybe we could do one, Andy, because I've always wanted to do one. I've never actually done it. I just tell people about it, but I've never actually done it. But he had this idea of like, how do we get people to come together? How do we create this unity and this consciousness in an actual group of humans? And he said, why don't we just try sitting around a circle and just sitting there in absolute silence until somebody thinks of something that that's totally new, that they've never thought before, that they've never read anywhere, that they've never heard anywhere. And that it's almost like what Brandy would be really good at this, because it's like you're just receptive to like what the universe wants to give you, and that you can sort of bring birth out into the world. It's a new idea out into the world, and then you share it with it and you talk about that. And I thought that was a really cool practice that I would love, to sort of more bring into our society. And maybe, yeah, because I like to think about what kind of society do we want to have in space? Like when we go to Mars and when we go to the moon and we go into and living in just space itself, like what's the culture? Who do we want to be as individuals? And I was also Googling after the show, like, does he have kids? Like where was the interview with his kids? And then he did, him and Saral didn't have kids. I found out, thank you, Wikipedia. And I was really intrigued by that, because I'm really interested in parenting and how we need to learn to be better parents and better kids to like be better role models and humans for society. Anyway, blah, 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 blah. So
yeah, but speaking of which, that brings me up a question. Just Simran, do you have, or Trinity, both of you guys, let's go with Just Simran first. Just Simran, do you have any advice for us? Like, you have James is a scientist, Loretta's a scientist, Brandy's a scientist, so many scientists. Do you have any advice for us adults?
No, not really, but I was wanting to ask, so because I love aerial silks, so that's the thing where there's, since you guys were talking about physics, I didn't understand much of what most of you guys said, but since you guys were talking about physics, I wanted to ask, so I do aerial silk, so that's where the silk hangs up from the ceiling and I can like climb on it and do all these tricks. How is it that like muscles, how are we able to pull, like what's the science behind it of how we can pull ourselves up and go up in the air on something like that?
James, you want to go for it?
Yeah. Okay, so you have to defy gravity, right? But your muscles contain all of these fibers, and they're connected a bit like this, right? And when you want to pull something, there's an electrical signal given, and all of these fibers, they go like this, right? So it gets much shorter, these muscles, not many muscles here, but anyway, they get shorter. And so you can exert a force, and it uses up energy. So you have to have a kind of sugar, if you like, that's given to, an oxygen that's given to these muscles, like it's a ATP, a fuel. And so
not sugar like Coca-Cola, right?
Drinking and getting, it gets bigger and shorter, basically, because of these fibers that are, like interweaving with each other. So when you pull your arms, that's what's happening. And they're actually kind of molecular sized. They're like really thin fibers, but billions of them. And so you can exert a lot of force. Anyway, does that answer your question, or is it more esoteric than what's the physical mechanism?
I slightly understood it, but I understand that you can exert force, but how does that force help us pull ourselves up? Like exactly how do muscles work to pull ourselves up and do things like that?
Your body weighs something, right? And the gravity is pulling you down, and your arms are here. And so all of these molecular strands get, shorter. And that force acts against the force of gravity and your body and pulls you, and you pull yourself up. And you do it through your mind. Your mind sends these electrical signals to your arm to move it up and down. And your mind can send lots of electrical signals. I mean, it can send signals inside your brain also. So, you can have superhuman strength sometimes if you want, if you put your mind to it, right? Maybe someone else can give a full explanation, but that's.
I have a question from the audience. I think somebody was asking Just Simran, but let's switch it over to Trinity. The same question. Trinity, what do you feel when you look at the stars? That's the question I got from the audience.
Let's see. When I look at the stars, some people say that the stars are suns. Some people say they are planets, and others say they are suns and planets. So when I look at them, I can only imagine how many other atmospheres. Thank you. There are.
Each one is a sun. What are you saying?
Interesting. Well,
Every star was a sun. Huh. That means there's a lot of sun, a lot of life out there.
Yes.
so I have another random question also for everybody. Anybody who wants to take this. What does this study from the movie mean to science and the current industry? How can we apply this knowledge of infinite potential?
Yeah, well, it's highly contentious, right? In physics, and you could see how Boehm was sort of marginalized and kicked out the system because essentially he didn't go along with the status quo. These quantum theories that are not particularly good and all that stuff, but he tried to think up some new ideas, and often that is a bit like religion, right? You come up with a new idea and they crucify you or something. But more recently, the ideas of Boehm, and it has to do with this infinite potential. And for instance, NASA, developed a type of thruster system that fundamentally, it's a very weak thrust, and people argue about it, but nevertheless, it's been published in papers, like it would be like a warp drive kind of system, okay? And it relies on a lot of the ideas that Boehm had. Defense Advanced Research Planning Association have a project actually to try to exploit the effect. And then we have people, other people that are doing other types of experiment where they try to dip into this infinite potential of the vacuum. Now, if they did succeed, okay, and I believe it's possible, but it's not easy. If they did succeed, you would have limitless energy, you would have limitless things on the planet Earth. It would completely change the geopolitics and the economics, everything in this planet. So there's a good reason to make sure it doesn't succeed, I guess, from a lot of people, but it does have that potential. And I think they killed off Boehm, because they wanted the status quo, the old system, follow the rules. And unfortunately in science, that's the way it is a lot of times. If you try to come up with a new idea, and I've had new ideas. I worked in a Nobel Prize winning lab on a microscope here, the scanning tunneling microscope, way back in the 80s. They got the Nobel Prize in 86, but when they tried to publish the results, all their papers were rejected initially, and they said it was rubbish. So this is a constant process across in science. And also maybe in the spiritual, trying to get new spiritual practices. Unfortunately, I really love Kundalini yoga, but Yogi Bhajan and the scandal has been rather people know about that.
I'd love to speak on that, because that was coming up is sound. All of us also, like our heart, we all have sound. We all have a lyrics, we all have our vocals, right? Which, like Krishnamurti, essentially, if we're just quiet enough, we can hear the universe speak to us and open up to it, right? And when we open up to it, it will move through you. So I was raised as a Christian, so I had no idea about chanting. Okay, I had no idea until one day I opened up in that way through my car accident. Long story short, sound came through me, and it sounded like and I like, I kind of freaked out because I didn't know anything about chanting or monks or anything at that time. And, you know, at that point was when my gifts started to come, and I heard, it's okay, we're here to help you. That's what I heard. So I said, okay, well, I'm kind of a daredevil. Let's go back in. So I breathed and I allowed the field to move through me, and I just let the chant move. Okay. So this is not a normal thing to most people, but it is a thing. Okay. So the science behind that and the studies, we understand we all have this vibrational field. We all have the access codes. And we're doing it a lot more now, right? A global meditation. We're seeing the Schumann resonance. I'd love to know more. How do you guys feel about some of the studies that are coming out with Schumann resonance, these global meditations, and do we believe there's a shift happening, or is there a shift happening? I'd love to know more.
I would love to throw that one over to Sarah, because I know Sarah's like an amazing sound healer, and you guys should connect with anybody out there who wants to get sound healing. She does amazing work with sound, and now she does stuff with nutrition along with sound, quantum nutrition, and she's amazing. But Sarah, what are your thoughts on that, on the power of sound and the Schumann resonance?
So it sounds like Brandy's probably more, you know, up to date with the current research. I will say that, you know, I've been kind of a part of like promoting some of these global meditations, and that every time we're seeing, you know, I don't know if it's more and more people that are joining in, or if it's just that we're making like a greater impact. But, you know, they post like kind of these kind of meters or like charts of sorts of where the Schumann resonance is at, and it's like off the charts almost with these last few that have happened, with so many people joining in around the planet just doing these meditations. And I'm sure like it sounds like she and I probably can give anybody that's interested the links to find out more about them. But I did want to kind of tag on to what she was saying about sound, because I've worked with primarily gongs the last 10 years. And that, you know, when people, it's, you know, if you're familiar with gong meditation, or if you're not, you know, I know you probably are, James, because you've been doing Kundalini for so long. I'm a Kundalini teacher too. And I got into gongs way before I actually like went through that program. And all I knew was that I had these new ideas and new feelings and new ways of looking at everything when I came out of these meditations. And so I've seen consistently, just from observation over the last 10 years, is that if you give people something like a gong, like the sound particles are moving through them in such dense waves that's like your biology almost can't compete. Like your brain that's trying to think and organize and structure everything into these old compartments just like dissolves. And so you're in this very free floating space. And I personally feel that this is like this space where people really receive like this higher information. They start channeling, and some people start to kind of live in that space. You know, some people kind of go back, you know, to the frequency, the resonance they were at before, but with these new ideas and these new perceptions. And so it's like the sound is really like this, I don't want to call it the vessel, because I feel like we're the vessel, but it's really like, it's the information, and it's like the sound is holding that infinite potential that's opening people up, and where they're receiving the most information, you know, outside of any teacher, lecture, information, book. You know, the sound is giving organic, like original information that's coming from, you know, inside of people, from, you know, if you want to call it, you know, higher self, higher consciousness, higher power, anything like that. And I really think that that relates to Boehm's work, in the sense that, I don't know if they weren't really super heavy on this in the movie, but, you know, he was really big on approaching things in new ways and not being afraid of making mistakes. And that learning, it's funny that we found from science and psychology that the greatest learning comes from experimenting and being new and not being locked into a kind of system. But then science like has all these rules and this process. Like I specialize in research, so it's like, you know, there's this very specific step-by-step process, and if you don't fit in the box, like nobody's going to listen to you, nobody wants to fund it. And so yeah, I have to kind of like stop and backtrack to kind of tie it all together. But did everybody kind of follow that stream of consciousness, is that all these things are relating to each other? And
yeah,
you know,
yeah, the Kundalini, it changed my life. I mean, it took me from a place like around 2000, and it transformed my life. I had no no, I've no regrets about it. It wasn't easy. It was painful at times. And I remember things like, doing white tantric yoga, where it's very intense for 8 hours and how it transforms one. And so to me, it's a very, very important thing. It's real. I mean, the scientists go, oh, well, we want to put instruments in there and check their brain. I don't know if you can do that, but you can feel it. And people that have been sort of transformed by it know it, And
Yeah, it connects people to their inner self and their inner knowing. And I feel like that alone gives them the confidence and then the inner sense of connection to start, trusting themselves and listening to their own original ideas than, always having to feel like they have to subscribe to some certain school or ideology. And
I gave a talk in the University of Bristol physics department. It's the Willis building. It was actually shown in the movie, That's where Boehm went for a while. And I talked to this physics department. And then, at the end of the talk went in. It was about stuff to do with science, obviously. But I asked them if they believed in, telepathy. I said, put up your hands if you've experienced telepathy. And basically 90% of the physics department put their hands up.
90%?
Yeah. I mean, I have a certain reputation there. I was a professor there for a couple of years, coming and going between UCLA, and I got to know them. But everybody, I was talking about like the quantum thing of the connectivity at the end, but yeah, they believe, they had some telepathic experience. And after we went to the pub and people were all talking about more about telepathy than nanotechnology.
Okay, let me ask the kids real quick. Let me ask the kid, James, Trinity, just Simran, have you guys experienced telepathy? Trinity, have you?
Do you know what it is though, Trinity?
Do you know what telepathy is?
I feel like my 2-year-old knows it because earlier I was thinking of her making, when we read a book, I like to make sounds for all the animals, and for a whale, I go, whoa. And I don't know why I started doing that. But I looked at her earlier today and I thought of a whale, and she looked at me and she goes, whoa, like without me saying anything. So have you guys ever experienced something like that where, maybe later your parents or your friend told you, I was just thinking that, and you had done something without them saying it to you?
Yeah. And, another guy was Walter Freeman, and he was a professor in Berkeley. And he's very famous for studying EEG stuff on brains. And he had studied rabbits, and he had a model of different levels of intercommunication in the brain. And we were working on a project together. He died, unfortunately. He's quite old, but his father was actually Freeman. The Walter Freeman had started lobotomy, and he felt so bad about it, this lobotomy disaster, that he went into the neuroscience of these EEG rabbit things. And then we were talking, and he also was totally, he doesn't talk about it, but he was into telepathy, particularly with his daughter. Like, his daughter was flying somewhere. He thought she was in Washington. They talked to each other on the phone. And he said, but you're not, I don't see Washington, I see something else. And she said, yeah, the flight went, I can't remember, some other place that he knew. And he was seeing that. And he constantly had these telepathic experiences. And I have also had quite a number of telepathic experiences in my existence, very strong ones. So, as a scientist, you go, oh, what am I supposed to say? I don't have the instruments, so the telepathy doesn't exist. Or am I supposed to say, well, maybe I'm a bit nuts and it was, a coincidence, but it's not. To me, it's real, and I'm a scientist. But this machine behind me, which is, it's just a background, but it's my lab, I've reduced it into this giant materialistic clump of steel, and I'm looking at molecules and atoms. Maybe I shouldn't be doing it. Maybe I should just throw that machine away and sit and meditate. Might be better, like the Tibetans, and look at the atoms. So anyway, talking too much. I'm sorry.
Well, in the movie,
I think you're
in the movie, actually, James, you just did what a piece of the movie explained as how the atom moved and then split, right? Do you guys remember this? Where he's like, you know, how it split and then all of a sudden it took on another form.
Mm-hmm.
So you just took on thought form after implementation and then thought form, which was exactly how like the variables work, right? There's so many variables.
Mm-hmm.
So I was going to tune in, literally tune in, since we're talking about sound. When I first started channeling, I had a hard time explaining light language or these codes, okay? And I really wanted to tell the story, whatever was coming through, the human constitution. I have so much about the government and I didn't know how to translate this. So I asked and they said, Brandy, you have 183 cross-line references to 2 words. Now just think about what that means for a minute. There's 183 potential ways for an interpreter to come in to a channel. So if you just have a bunch of strings hanging and then you put another bunch of strings to go the opposite, you have the grid, right? Would that be accurate? Okay. It's so just imagine when we say channel, it's not just this, you know, hokey thing. We're literally tuning into a channel. You know, like the TV, we've heard this before, the frequency. So there's so many ways to go into each. There's just it's so vast, right? So that's why they say focus. Choose what makes you feel the best, dance and smile and be happy, you know, love, highest level of consciousness or frequency, and then everything else will play its role. But it's really us. We get to choose.
It is.
Yeah.
Very much like the hidden variables of Boehm, yeah, because you tune into that and that channel, and I get it now that it channels it. So that like the double slit experiment is that this electron or whatever you want to call it is coming along and it's tuned into certain channels and it goes in certain directions. So it's a nice analogy, and you know, it's it's interesting, and there I can see this relationship between what you're saying and the Boehm picture. Yeah?
And
Yeah.
I feel like
Actually,
we can see that. Oh, sorry. I just feel like we can see that, you know,
No, please.
manifested immediately. It's like, you know, when you do something that makes you happy, let you know so other people around you get happy too, because they feed off your happiness. It's like you're seeing, you know, your physics and your biology change, and you can immediately see it change in the matrix around you. And I feel like that's the simplest, you know, but also we could talk about it for hours and get really advanced with why that's happening. But I feel like, you know, just like you're saying, these atoms are influenced by the energy around it. Like we're like a direct, you know, example of that. You know, if I'm an atom and you're an atom and I'm excited and you get excited, you know, we're influencing each other.
It's like strumming a guitar. You know, if it's in tune, everyone's gonna go, or a harp. Ah. You know, the science behind that, you know, it's that simple. Yeah.
So I want to respect everybody's time. I know our time is up, but whatever that means, because space-time is relative. If you guys are okay for another 5 minutes to keep going, we keep talking, but I do want to pose this question for all the panelists. And Loretta, I guess you're by association, you're the panelist now. So I want to pose this out there. What is something, and I'd like everybody to answer this question, everybody, all the panelists, including you, Trinity, okay? And you as well, Just Simran, so think about this, okay? What, if you could have anything, and if you could have anything happen based on the idea of infinite potential, like if you have anything happen, like one specific thing, if you could have that happen based on the idea that anything is possible, infinite potential, right? Means that we can make any possibility happen, whether through energy or through whatever we need to do. What would you want to, what do you visualize is happening with that energy, with infinite potential? So anybody want to jump on that first? And we want to take the first baton? Okay, go, Jess Simran. Go ahead.
Infinite potential. What would you like?
If there was infinite potential, I think the thing that I would want to happen would be for people to like never go hungry. And there would be no need for food banks really. and people would always have a source of income.
That's very possible with infinite potential. Awesome, Justin. I think there is some strategic stuff there. I'm totally on that. Anybody want to get the next baton? Yes? Oh, you guys are ready? Okay, go ahead. Go ahead, guys.
If I would say pollution be over.
Okay. That's a very, both, are you guys both about pollution?
I'm not sure about her, but that's me. I'm really hyper right now.
All right. Anybody else?
What about you, Sophia? I don't know. She does. She does. She wants
Sophia?
Your mind, if you can use your mind for infinite potential,
Let go. Stop.
what are you manifesting?
What?
so, so let's, anybody else? Sarah or Loretta or Brandy or James?
Can you repeat the question? What would we do if we had infinite potential for something?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I don't know. How do you top those answers? What if everybody could play music? Like everybody in the world. I mean, that's a fun one.
That's a good one.
Like everybody would be a little bit happier.
I wanted to like fulfill David Boehm's vision of using the best of science. And then he evolved to like, okay, maybe the best of science and the best of wisdom and spiritual traditions to like the grand unification theory of science and spirituality to bring out the best in humanity. Be like those electrons in the plasma in the metal where we have the matrix that gives us the structure and the stability, but have the freedom of the electron to be a plasma that can, you know, express our individual uniqueness.
I'll have what she's having.
Yeah, that's like the more like formal, definitely scientific level of almost what I was trying to say. Like, you know, what if we can apply that to being creative and be, you know, feeling limitless? You know, what would you do? Like for me, you know, I didn't play music until I was like 25 because, you know, I didn't believe I had infinite potential. You know, what if we could apply like what we know from science, you know, into our creative side and feeling that? I really love that answer. Thank you, Loretta.
Wonderful. We got to backtrack. We have Jess Simran wants to add to her question. So Jess Simran.
And Trinity.
I think the thing that caught my attention in the story was how, I forget the person's name, but the person who wouldn't allow Boehm back, like, to see his work because it was the work on atomic bombs, right?
Yep.
And I would want to end hunger, like make sure everyone has a source of income, and like make people's minds more pure, sort of, and end corruption or selfishness. Like just not allow anyone to be selfish.
That's a good one. Can you imagine what would happen if he let him? Maybe we wouldn't have atomic bombs today. Like, that might be a possibility. Maybe. Trinity, Sophia, do you guys want to add you want to answer the question?
So, you know how she was saying, like, stop pollution?
Uh-huh.
I was thinking, like, to say it different, like, cleaner energy.
And I think that's possible with infinite, like with tapping into infinite potential. Like if we're using, like what James was talking about, 0 point energy, there's no like byproduct. So it's all clean energy.
Yeah, and I feel like if we increase like our feeling of interconnectedness and connection with one another and a sense of unity, you know, the people that are in a place of power, you know, with pollution and you know, ending starvation and things like that. It's like instead of caring so much about themselves, they'll realize how connected they are to everyone else. And then we'll start to realize, you know, what they're doing and, you know, care about everyone and everything else the same as they care about themselves. That's one thing I liked about my Kundalini yoga training, was that it's like, I don't want to dissolve the ego. I want that my ego to be on everything around me, because I am everything.
Nice.
So I think a big goal to, you know, reaching these beautiful goals that you guys put out is that, you know, the people that have their egos in here need to take their egos and spread them to everything. Because if you care about everything the same as you care about you, everything benefits, right? And then we can start to end, you know, pollution and starvation, and, you know, cut back on the things that are damaging our planet and the people.
And we have one more person, Brandy. Will you?
So let's all just imagine for a moment, as we start to wrap up for a second, imagine that we are in all complete harmony, and that harmony is raining down into the entire planet. And part of that is the music. It's the breath, it's the humming, it's the dancing, it's the singing. It's the unlimited self-governing, this is a key word for all of us, self-governing system that eventually takes care of itself. This is the state of being in resonance, harmony, justice, and freedom. We refer to it as zeros and ones. And so if we could allow that, we're so used to pushing and pulling and fighting and moving and stuff, and that is the opposite of neutral. So just imagine the harmony coming through this rain, just nourishing the full body of that self-governing system, and all of that just matriculating down, which means just coming down into the field of now in the third density. Because I cellularly believe that's what we do when we quiet our minds and we listen and we love. And so I trust and know that is what's happening. That might be.
Love that.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and I love that Boehm, I wrote this down from some reading I had done before on him, that he wants scientists to create, you know, a new structure of ideas that are expressing that harmony and that beauty that we see in nature, or when we feel that sense of harmony within ourselves.
Mm-hmm. And that starts with all of us. We're here, and also you, Simran and Trinity and Sophia. You guys, we're all scientists, and so we have to start showing up in that way, even if we're not officially scientists yet. Thank you, everyone that showed up. You guys are amazing. Please stay in touch. We shared some links. Please, you can always click the 3 dots on the bottom right and save the chat if you want to get any of the links that everybody shared, their email addresses. You guys are all awesome. Just Simran, Trinity, Sophia, if you guys want to connect to the adults, some of these adults are great people. If you ever want mentors or teachers, or if you want support with any of the cool stuff you guys are doing and you want help, look at, you got Brandy and Sarah and Loretta and Mick and me. We have all these cool adults. We're not really adults though.
I do have one thing I want to promote. We're doing a huge youth summit in September to October for the United Nations, but we're taking over the United Nations in VR and AR. And so I want to just extend that, and I want to send you guys the information to get you involved. We have over 50 million global youths and 1,500 youth delegates. So there's going to be we have Pitbull performing for us in AR, VR. What? We got some stuff going on, but I just wanted to extend that to Cosmic Labs and everyone here. Let's just keep on weaving the web of awesomeness.
Amazing.
Awesome.
Thank you so much, Brandy. You have such a great energy. It was lovely to have you here.
Yeah, and how do we find out more about that?
We could share it in the email that we have, the email thread. Share that, Brandy, and we'll also market it in our next newsletter as well. So,
Yeah.
Cool.
I just want to say, since you didn't deactivate my ability to talk. Can I see myself now?
Wait, is that God? Hello, is it
Hello.
God?
I did play God on the Talk to God phone booth and at Burning Man, and I talked to like people for 3 hours, and I was channeling stuff for them, and people were like, "What?" And I was like, "What?" But can you show people me so I can say thank you with my face?
I can't do it. I don't have control anymore.
Who has control?
I can only control I can only control my UFO.
Okay, well, in that case, I will just be a voice and say, thank you all. I loved hearing all of you. I want to hear more from each and every one of you. Every time one of you spoke, I was like, wait, what? I want to connect, and I have so many questions. And so I saved the chat. Oh, here we go.
Mm-hmm.
Hello. Hi. So I saved the chat, and I would love to be in touch with you. And it's what a pleasure and an honor.
And by the way, just so you guys know, Mikal is going to be hosting some workplace shops and stuff for us and the kids. You guys are going to love it. She does really awesome stuff with music and like puppets and all kinds of fun stuff. And everybody here is amazing. So stay in touch. You guys are all amazing. Please have a good night, a good weekend, right? Keep meditating, keep kundalining it up, infinite potential. Get that infinite potential going, right?
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Simran. Thank you, Trinity.
Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
Bye.
See you in the dreamscape.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
You're in the lucid
Bye.
dream. You guys in the lucid dreams. Lucid dreaming, lucid dreaming. Michal.